Go for it.
Yeah, I can go back to the year 2011, and I'm a local educator here in the Valley here, and I had just undergone a somewhat, I don't call it a traumatic experience, i.e., I was one of the top candidates to become the local superintendent of this particular district, and all of a sudden, and this district has never had an African American superintendent. So right at the very last minute, the rug got pulled out from under me for some lesser qualified candidates, and I remember things were just kind of going through their own little chaotic mode at that time, and I was concerned. And I was coming, I was here at Emmanuel, and had a lot of good supportive friends, what have you, and everybody was talking to me. I said no, I was okay with it because I kept praying on it, and I was okay. So one day I was sitting there talking to a friend of mine in another district, and he invited me to. I said, "Hey, how you guys doing with the selection of your new superintendent?" He said, "Hey, they just selected a new search team last night. Why don't you apply out of the clear blue?" So I said, "Oh, I don't know." So he sent me out of clear blue. He sent me an application that search team had just put out that day, and I got it, completed it, sent it back out. And the following weekend, I got called in for the interview process. So within I'd say between 3 p.m. on a Friday and 6 p.m. that Saturday, I went through 3 highly intensive interviews and was selected as the new superintendent of a neighboring district. And this is what I learned. I'm bringing it back to Emmanuel and the whole spiritual side of this, is that when God is active and working in your life, when he's doing things for you, traditionally you're the last one to find out about it. I learned this the hard way. I didn't know all the praying, all the things you're doing, because we always want things to happen yesterday, but that's not how it works on God's turntable. And I remember that night after being selected, about 7 o'clock, I get a call from the headhunter, saying, "Mr. Sector, that they would like to have you lead their district here." Well, that was on a Saturday night, and I couldn't hardly sleep that night. So the very next morning, I was here at Emmanuel before the doors opened. I almost came here with my knee pads because I was ready to fall on my knees at that point in time and start giving my thanks. But I remember at the end of the service, we were doing altar call at that time, where you can come up to the front of the church and just to ask for special prayers and thanks. And I had to come up and just rededicate my life to God and what He was doing for me, because I learned that as long as you stay prayed up and you're doing all the right things and God's active doing things for you, number one, you're the last one to find out about it. But secondly, once you are blessed, the object is to pass it on. I mean, you don't sit on. So I work with a lot of aspiring administrators, predominantly people of color, and how to deal with the status quo and how to navigate the landscape. And that's one of the things I always tell them. I said, and this is another big aha moment for me, was the fact that I was never supposed to be in that district. It was obvious. I had been in that district for over 25 years, thinking this is where I was supposed to drop my anchor. This is where I was supposed to. No, I was never supposed to be there. God had a plan for me somewhere else, doing something totally different. But like I said before, I was the last one to find out about that. So you just don't get so attached to the status quo, because you never know how God's acting in your life and what plans that He's already laid for you that you aren't aware of. But you'll find out eventually. So that's my story. That's my story with Emmanuel. And I remember Reverend Lyman at the time was acting pastor, and I remember him and I got to be fairly close because I shared that story with him, and he was just astonished on how it happened, how quick it happened, and how efficient it was that I was able to equate all that back to my relationship with God. And this is what I tell folks all the time. You just have to stay prayed up and do the right thing at the right time, and God listens, and He acts when it's ready. When it's your time, He'll act on time. And that's my story.
Nice.